Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another outstanding, epic, tremendous. Use any adjective you want to describe it because this episode is going to be something special. Because I, Jeremy Prophet, the harbinger of truth, the host with the most, the guy you tune in to see every week, am joined by a former Intercontinental champion, United States champion, tag team champion, and someone whose career has been nothing short of miraculous. I'm talking about the Milan Miracle himself, formerly known as Santino Marella, my good friend Anthony. How are you, my man?
Good. How you doing? That was a very nice entrance. I think you've done that once or twice, eh?
Actually, I kind of just go with the flow, try to take the highlights of what the guest is kind of all about, but I want to make them feel special because honestly, watching you, that's the impression that I get. You've entertained me for many years, and it's really an honor to be able to be on here, converse with you, and give our audience a little bit of insight into what you've been up to these days.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you.
So one thing I forgot to mention that I would have liked to get in there in that great elaborate intro is that I know that Santino Marella was, from Italy, but you're also a great Canadian. And that's something we're very big on here. Canadians who have made headwaves throughout the industry of wrestling, who've overcome the odds and obstacles that we have in our way. And I think your story from the first time that I heard it, which would have been, I think when you were a guest speaker at the FCW tryouts that I was at in late 2009, nothing short of miraculous. I mean, the term Milan Miracle, I know they use that to apply to when you won the Intercontinental title, but your whole journey has been just a miracle. I mean, can you maybe tell the fans a little bit about how it started for you from independent wrestling or even from judo to OVW and then to that great moment in Milan, Italy?
Yeah, I guess obviously the Cole's notes. I did judo since I was 9 years old. And because I did judo, I wrestled in high school and I wrestled in university in Montreal for Concordia. And there was a guy on my team, a good friend of mine now, and his dad ended up being my first coach, Don Koloff, and he worked for the Calgary Stampede, WWF in the 80s. And he had a little school in Woodbridge, Ontario. And, I just remember when I found out, I'm like, oh my God, this is like, I just connected with my destiny. I just knew it. There was this really interesting, strange feeling that you don't get too often where, you just found something that's going to be significant in your life. So we had, several indie matches in Ontario. Then I just knew that it was a different time, right? There was no social media. You had to get out there. You had to put, photos and VHS tapes in the eyes of people. And the only connection we had at the time was Japan. So everything kind of fed one another. Judo kind of helped me get a head start in Japan. And then I ended up being kind of kicked out of Japan because I overstayed one of my tourist visas. And then I moved to OVW in Louisville, Kentucky. But it was the fact that I had wrestled in Japan kind of gave me a little bit of a head start there as well. So judo fed Japan, Japan fed OVW. But I totally faced one of the hardships that a lot of Canadian talent. I couldn't work in the United States. I was there on just whatever tourist 6-month visa and had to survive with my savings because it's a no-no, right? If you come here and work without a work visa, you're in big trouble. You can be banned for like a long time, and so that was the additional pressure, and we had to make it work. I got a sponsorship by Muscle Tech at the time. I was doing a body transformation. So that really helped me with my supplements because that can be pretty expensive.
Yep.
My mother is Métis, and they helped me with a little bit of funding. It was a couple $100 a week, but I mean, like, it really stretched out my savings a lot. And it was like a race against the clock. The savings were going down. I was getting attention. I was, making some progress. There was some chatter, some buzz, and I just had to stay there long enough until it happened. And at the time, I'm 32 years old. I'm 5'10". I'm Canadian. Like there's a lot of stuff against me a little bit, but I stood out because I had just wrestled that battle art style in Japan, and I was different from everybody else. And then I had, the privilege of having Rip Rogers as my coach. And I learned to mesh the two in terms of that battle art style and that WWE storytelling style, and just really have that hybrid. And that's what ultimately made me stand out enough to the point where I got hired. But yeah, the story was I ran out of like every last penny I had the day before I got signed. So I mean, I remember looking in the mirror and like pulling my hair and being like, "It's coming, man. They say it's coming. Just hold on, relax." And my grandmother was like really sick, and I'm like thinking like, what if she dies? I don't want to go, and miss it. Like I'm just about to get signed. I feel it's right there, and it was right there actually.
Mm-hmm.
When I look back, it was right there, and I just was, man. It was pretty stressful, and getting signed is obviously great, but avoiding disaster was like way better.
And when I hear your story and like just everything that you had to go through, it just speaks to me at how courageous you were in doing it. Like I have to wonder, what was the reaction from like some of your friends back in Canada when you told them, hey, I'm putting all my eggs in one basket here. I'm going all out, and it's either make or break. Like, how did they react to it?
Yeah, to my face, they were like, everyone kind of thought I was crazy enough to pull it off, to be honest. And everyone wished me luck. And no one, I had very few people tell me like, come on, man, like, you're wasting your time. It's not going to happen. Very few. Most people kind of believed in me, I guess, just for some of the things I've accomplished in the past and just my personality type. I'm sure my parents were terrified and worried, and because I had my daughter at this time here was so when I'm 32 years old, my daughter is like over 11 years old. So that's what I mean by if it didn't happen, I would have had to go back and reformulate a game plan and go to my parents' basement until I could get a job. And I want my daughter to look up to me and think like my dad's a superstar, not like a failure, right? But I was so confident, man. I'm telling you, there was no other outcome that I would allow to be a reality.
Mm-hmm.
I just I use this example. Imagine being a tightrope walker and you're looking focused, laser focused on the rope. You're walking, you're balanced, and you get across. And then when you look back at how high you just were and how dangerous it actually was, and you're like, oh my God, that was really dangerous. But I was so focused at the time, and there wasn't a shred of doubt in my mind that this was going to happen. This was my destiny.
Mm-hmm.
And now that I look back, I'm like, oh my God, what was I thinking? It's crazy. But, you can't have only belief and faith. You have to obviously have some talent and something that you have to have that type of faith from something. I had been on the national judo team and I had become a national champion and went to the junior worlds and I did acting and some, dabbled in acting and MC work, hosting events, and I was comfortable in front of a crowd. And there were attributes and experiences that kind of gave me that confidence. It wasn't just like, blind confidence kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
but I was super confident.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's very important. You need to be confident. You need to believe in yourself, because most of the time, no one else is going to believe in you. But, I think that it's a big thing that will help propel people forward. And you definitely had a lot of motivation on your side, and you're here to tell the story. It was successful. And I think that, you've helped many generations paving that way, showing that it can be done. Because
Yeah.
I've been very outspoken about the fact that as Canadians, we're at a big disadvantage, mainly because of a lot of the stuff you mentioned, the border, not being able to go over there and work and be able to, earn a living while we try to catch the attention of a major company.
Yeah.
I've had these conversations with, the likes of Lance Storm, Tyson Kidd, a lot of people that I've met throughout the business, great Canadians who've been successful. And do you feel that there should be more attention on Canada, with knowing that it's not like Americans where we can just, go wrestle in some of those big name companies and, rub shoulders with the right people and have those same opportunities? Do you feel that they should be looking more towards Canada and the talent pool that we have here?
Yeah. Well, we definitely have a disproportionate Sorry, I got something in my eye here.
Take all the time you need, my man.
Yeah, we definitely have a disproportionate amount of talent here. For some reason, we have really good professional wrestlers coming out of Canada. And, the United States has 10 times our population, but they aren't producing 10 times the amount of incredible wrestlers. So proportionally, I think for some reason, I don't know if it's multiculturalism. I don't know if it's because, the circumstances here, you have to be super hungry because there's not a lot of opportunities. So you got to drive to the Maritimes 14 hours. You got to drive to Montreal. You got to drive, a lot to get a little match and make $20 and $50. And so I think just going through that process kind of makes you really tough, and it naturally filters out the people that are not that hungry. I use this other analogy, I went into the Louis Vuitton store one time in Paris. I'm like, yeah, I'll grab a Louis Vuitton wallet. That's pretty cool. And then I look at the price tag. I'm like, $7,000. I'm not willing to pay that price. And that's what happens to wrestling, right? I did a seminar last weekend in Poland. And when I was telling people the price in terms of how much you got to train, there was one guy and I saw him looking going, oh, I'm not willing to spend that. I'm like, listen, you got to train twice a day, every day, maybe Sunday off. And you have to do 5 weightlifting sessions and, multiple wrestling sessions, and then something cross training, whether it's boxing or jiu-jitsu or wrestling or whatever it is, Muay Thai. You got to train 10 to 12 times per week. That's what it's going to take. And this guy was like, oh man, no, yeah, I don't want to do that. And, that happens a lot too. Guys go, oh, I want to be a wrestler. And then all of a sudden they realize they didn't really, really want to be a wrestler. And Dr. Tom said it once, and I was proud to, he goes, there's people that say, I'll give it a shot. There's people that say, I'll give it my best shot. And there's guys that say, I'll do whatever it takes. Mm-hmm. And I immediately categorized myself as I know which guy I am. Because I suffered, man. Just being away from my daughter for there was 3 years where I was gone a lot. Like in Japan, one time there was a 5-month stretch. In Louisville, one time there was a 5-month stretch. And I was lucky enough to be able to bring my daughter to Japan for a month and bring her to Louisville for a month and here and there. And, calling cards and messenger and video chats and stuff. But it was hard because you had to schedule a small window, very precise, go walk down to an internet cafe, and just kind of hopefully they logged on at the same time on a computer. There were no smartphones at the time. And so it was tough, man. It was really tough. I remember going to Denny Davis's office one time, just as I was, narrowing in on that WWE developmental contract, and like just beside myself, like I'm away from home too long. Is this worth it? Am I doing the right thing? I'm missing so much time. Is any amount of money and wrestling career going to be able to make up for this time I'm missing? And I walked in there and I'm like, Danny, I need you to tell me something that's going to make me feel better. Like, am I doing the right thing? And he's like, man, to this day, I never forgive myself for the time away from my kids. And I'm like, oh my God, wow. That's not what I needed to hear, man. I'm having a hard time. And, I know that you can provide a better life and opportunities. And now my daughter's wrestling and, capitalizing on those opportunities. And she's going to have, the opportunity to enjoy the life of paradise that I enjoyed, being a free spirit on the road and traveling the world and all this wonderful stuff. But yeah, man, there were some times when, I would like to have been there in the morning and pour the milk in her cereal. And that's the sacrifice you make. So it's, but if you don't have kids, maybe you don't have that. I did, right? So I had that issue. But there's guys that are out there that if you're a single guy and you got nobody and you're just a hungry wrestler, it's not going to be as hard for you. If you're a Canadian guy and you have your mom was born in Ohio and you got dual citizenship, not going to be as hard for you. There's a lot of different circumstances that dictate how tough it's going to be for you, right? Just like the circumstances that make you not a good candidate to be a wrestler. Like you just naturally have a bad temper. You're not good with working with people. You're not coordinated. You're not strong, or whatever it is. There's a lot of obstacles. And to have every single attribute that you need is like, it's pretty rare, you know?
No. Oh, definitely. One of the things, and this is just me wanting to bounce some stuff off of you because
Yeah.
I've been researching the whole thing with wanting to make it. I'm someone who's very ambitious. I do have very lofty goals when it comes to professional wrestling. Putting in the work has never been an issue for me. But being Canadian has pretty often been an issue.
Yeah.
So what I've come to realize is that what I think we really have against us is, amongst other things, the fact that they would need to pay for a work visa. So already we're coming in at a higher expense than someone off the American independent scene.
Mhm.
But in addition to that, there's the fact that, let's take WWE, for example, a company, we both know very well, you a little bit more than me, but WWE tries out Canadian talent when they come to Canada. They only really come to Canada with TV maybe 3 times in a year if we're lucky, and it's going to be pretty spread out. It's going to be the Montreal, Toronto, Ottawa loop, and maybe one out west, Calgary, Edmonton, BC
Yeah.
possibly. And so of all the talents here in Canada, only a handful get a look once they're there. And with the protocol, it may have changed now, but I know that I tried out during 2010, which is when we first met. And then also in 2012 when NXT had become its own brand. And things had changed between then because I actually paid out of my own pocket. I went down to FCW, confident that, it would lead to something. And then in 2012, I called the office, went to TV, and they had said that the hiring process is now you have to first get auditioned at TV. And then if they like you, they send you down for a week at NXT, take a look at you, and then they decide. So I feel that when that transition happened in 2012, it was limiting the talent pool to only those that they would get a chance to look at TV, then send them down to NXT. Whereas I was doing some work in New England, and some of the guys there were telling me how they would, do 3-4 TVs in a year. That in I've done 4 TVs in my whole time in wrestling, which has been 16 years. They've done the equivalent of that in sometimes less than a calendar year. So
Yeah.
it's just getting more looks, getting more opportunities. And I feel like no matter how hungry you are here, the fact that there's that border that divides us, we can't go there. There are only so many shows. It tells me that the scouting would need to be stronger in Canada, or they'd have to have some sort of a system where they can bypass this clear obstacle that's causing so many great talents to fall through the cracks. You and I had a conversation where you had said that you pitched an idea about, I think you called it NXT North. Is that,
Yeah.
yeah. You want to maybe tell the viewers a little bit about that?
Yeah, and that's exactly. I'm trying to remedy the exact problem you said. Um, so Canada falls into the North American market, and when you apply for a work visa, the big case you have to make as a Canadian is, why am I hiring somebody outside of the United States when I could possibly hire somebody with the same qualifications inside the United States? And to say, well, this guy's a little more entertaining and a little bit, it's not something you can calculate, and measure how good a professional wrestler is. It's, we're going to say this guy has the it factor. That's, how do you explain that to a person giving a work visa, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to do something, NXT North, something like the NXT UK, and we just get to showcase on the WWE Network our talent across Canada, and make it like a tier. If NXT is AAA, let's make it AA, and guys that excel and rise to the top. And once they've consistently been at the top of NXT North for, a year, then maybe they can go down to NXT at the PC and, try and do the same thing and get over and reach the top and then get called up to one of the major brands. Yeah, I mean, there's been some changes in WWE recently in the back in the office and stuff that it's still a possibility. I know that we were grouped in the North American market, so they like to give performance centers or developmental territories based on the market. So because we fall under the North American market, there's already a PC in the North American market. So we have to try and convince them that we have enough incredible talent that we could really justify, because you have to be able to show like 30 awesome talent to get a territory started or a developmental system started.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, each one of those 30 guys would have to be good enough to seamlessly go down to NXT and work there. And then when they say, man, they got 30 guys that could work here tomorrow up there. Maybe we should put together some content up there. I think it would have a cult following, there's K-pop, right? Everyone likes the Korean pop and different things from and people like Japanese wrestling and Japanese wrestlers. I think there could be a niche that even Americans would like Canadian wrestling.
Mhm.
Like, look at the guys we have, even right now, Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, the whole Hart family. I mean, there's just so many guys. Bobby Roode, the list, Edge, Christian, Trish. Obviously, the list goes on and on. We just have a lot. We have a lot of good guys, and we have a lot of good guys that could be just like that.
Yeah.
We're stacked. We're stacked. Even now with Alexander, Ethan Page, the list just goes on and on, man. You know how deep it is.
Absolutely. And when you say 30 guys, I mean, I think we could easily fill 100 spots, unquestionably, seeing the caliber of talent. And it's one of the things on my end that I never really understood, was because they were on a talent hiring spree for the longest time, hiring a lot of people, out of promotions like Evolve, people who've had their moments in PWG and whatnot. There were the same companies. Anyone who had kind of a buzz, they were wanting to pick them up or, try them out and see what they have up close. Unfortunately, Canadians, since we don't have one of those big name promotions for them to scout, we were kind of, I think, falling through the cracks, and they only come here so many times per year. So I got the impression, just not going into a lot of details, but the last times I was there in 2012, they kind of felt like we were like Americans, and that they had this impression that because they don't see us on these big name indies that they scout, the Evolves and the PWGs, etc., it was simply because we weren't good enough to get booked, not knowing that we run such a high risk going to want to do one of those shows without having a work visa that allows us to, seamlessly pass the border. So I that's what I talked about a lot with TJ Wilson and with Lance Storm, and just trying to get the word out there that Canada is a different entity. We're like the UK, and I would hope that your idea could come to fruition, because I think it would help a lot of people. It would help a lot of people of my generation, the generation to come, to be able to get the visibility that we need to show that our skills are on par, maybe even superior to people who are in NXT right now. And that's just one example, because there's so many companies out there now, so much competition. When I did my research, believe it or not, even big companies like Ring of Honor only have one Canadian on their roster. Wow. A company like MLW, who you've maybe heard about, they have no Canadians. These are top level independent companies, and Canada is just not present throughout them. So I think that something needs to change, and hopefully, your idea can come to pass. And if you need any support with that in any way, I'm happy to put my big mouth and big following behind that to see it come through.
I really hope it does. I really hope that they see us as, and the business model that I would propose would be one that's really hard to say no, because it's not, no one's looking to get rich in NXT North. They're just looking for opportunities and exposure to then go somewhere else. It's kind of like the NXT UK model, where they get together for a week and they do all their TVs, and then guys now have this, supercharged indie booking fee where they can go work. Even still, they'd have to go to the US as well. I'd like to see somehow, the performers be able to cross the border a little more, especially when it comes to something like independent artists. Yeah. I'm not going down and stealing, we're not taking high tech, IT jobs and stuff. It's entertainment. So, but yeah, the mandates change drastically from over the years. Like, nobody over this age, nobody under this age, nobody over this height, nobody under this height, and it changes a lot. So there are a lot of guys that didn't get hired because they were too short or too old, and then all of a sudden 7 years later they're hiring guys just like that, left and right. And then there was the whole creation of AEW, which kind of changed some of the hiring dynamics, and then the proliferation of social media and guys that are really popular online getting hired because they have this following. So it's constantly a work in progress in terms of what they're looking for, when it should always be one thing: the it factor, because that's essentially what's going to make you a big star. If there's something about you that makes me want to watch and I can get behind whatever you're doing in the ring, that should speak for itself. Not, It's things you can measure.
Yeah.
This guy's height, this guy's age, this guy's whatever. Is he good or not? Is he awesome? Does it blow you away? You can't stop thinking about him, and you can't stop talking about his match with your buddy on the way home. Like that. That's the stuff that should hire people, right?
Mm-hmm. No, undoubtedly. I mean, I think that when it comes down to it, the it factor, as you mentioned, is what connects with the audience. Something that you had your entire career. And something that led to the many great moments that you had. But that's something that you can't teach. That's either a person has it or they don't. That's something that I think it's easier to teach someone how to wrestle and do wrestling maneuvers than it is to teach someone to be a star and to connect with an audience. Again, just my take. But
well, imagine someone said, "Hey, there's a girl in my class and I really like her. How can I get her to like me?" If you had the definitive answer to that, you would be a billionaire. Yeah. Because you have to be interesting. You got to have the it factor in her eyes, and again, how can you teach that? You can't really.
Yeah. Before I forget, and it's probably not really going with the flow of the interview here, but with what you had said about NXT North, if you want to check out our episode that we did with Lance Storm, he actually said that he pitched the same type of concept back in the mid 2000s.
Yes.
To John Laurinaitis. And I don't know if you've talked with Lance or talked to him recently.
I love Lance, and I know they didn't want to do it in Calgary. And over the years, indirectly speaking with people, I'm like, so for example, if we did the NXT UK model where we had this group training for like a week, I would love if Lance Storm would come down to Toronto or specifically Mississauga and come down for a week. Stay in the hotel, train everybody for the week, bang out 4 TVs and back home, because apparently he doesn't want to move, like full-time pack up and move to Toronto. But working with Lance Storm would be amazing down at at Battle Arts and NXT North if it ever came to be. And I'm a huge fan of his as a wrestler and just as a person. He's a really good guy. I think he's just really trustworthy and has a lot of honor, and those are the kind of people you want to have around. Cares about the business a lot. And I saw some of his when you can get match reviews from him. Like you send him a match and he sends you a write up. Have you seen the effort and detail he puts into these write ups? They're like pages and pages of notes. And I mean, like that's just an honest effort. And when someone asks you to do something and they're paying you and he really puts forth a solid effort, I'm just a big fan of his. Yeah,
I've actually had several match reviews done by Lance Storm. I was one of the wrestlers that Chris Jericho sponsored to be able to participate in that, and that's how I kind of got connected with Lance. And
oh, nice.
Yeah, been working with him on and off, and it's really helped to up my game. And,
so then what kind of person he is?
Oh,
yeah,
no, great guy. So yeah, I think that we have a lot of great talent here in Canada. We have a lot of great leaders like yourself, like Lance, a lot of people that could make this happen. Hopefully we see it come to pass and it helps a lot of us get to better places or the places that we aspire to be.
Well, I've been down at the PC and I'm looking like my students, I have several students that can be here and be top players at the PC. And then I see some of the new hires, the guys came from Evolve. And I'm like, are these guys all referees? And they're like, no, they're wrestlers. And I'm like, what's going on here? These guys don't look the part. They're not like jacked and strong. And I'd pass them on the street. I wouldn't even do a double take because these don't look like superstars. So whatever the mandate is now, we need stars, man. That's all they've ever wanted. That's all they've ever looked for in a developmental, someone that's going to be a star. That's it. Who's the next, whatever, Rock, Cena, Austin.
I think that, you need that eclectic mix of people that have that it factor that makes your head turn when you walk past them on the street and, wonder what that person's all about. I had a conversation with Tommy Dreamer ages ago, and he explained that Paul Heyman, someone who you worked with in your developmental days, that Paul Heyman was a bit different than other promoters because a lot of promoters would want wrestlers that reflect themselves. Like, WWE wanting guys 6'2", 230 because the chairman was, around that size, and many examples like that. Whereas Paul Heyman just cared about people who could get over. And I remember you telling me that when Heyman had taken over, they had cast you in a bit of a different character. You were doing a Russian character, you're Boris Alexeyev, based on your martial arts background. And I think that is a great example that speaks to Paul Heyman's abilities to accentuate the strengths of people and put them in the bright lights where they should be, using the skill set they bring to the table.
Yeah, a lot of promoters these days, when they book someone, they go online, they see who's kind of hot already, who is there a buzz around already, and that's really not very. There's no secret, there's no trick to that, right? This guy's already hot, and you're booking him. Okay, great, you're booking a guy that's hot, but a promoter needs to challenge himself and try and make somebody. Because if you can get in and get someone at the grassroots level. And that's what Paul Heyman did to me. I wasn't signed. I was in the intermediate class. He came out and he created this Boris Alexiev character. I was Boris Koloff, and he tweaked it a bit. And him and Al Snow showed me exactly how it's done. He goes, watch this. Because I was doing some funny stuff, and I was Boris in the intermediate class. And he goes, in 3 weeks, these people will forget everything that you did in the beginner's class, and they will be completely on board. And we transformed the way we came to the ring, the presentation, the intensity, the techniques. And I remember the first week, it's like, oh, it's that guy from the beginner's class, And then all of a sudden next week, it's like, oh my, it's Boris. And then 3 weeks, it's like, oh shit, this guy's coming out to kick someone's ass. And all of a sudden, in a few months, when my name would come, people would go in this frenzy, like this bloodthirsty frenzy, like, yes, someone's gonna get killed. And the atmosphere in the building changed completely, and we created that based on how it was booked. And it was a huge learning experience for me. I'm like, okay, that didn't take long at all to make them forget exactly, about who I was, and now believe in completely who I am. And I think promoters, most promoters these days, if you're an indie show, it's once every 6 weeks or once every whatever, even 1 month, once every 2 months. It's not like a weekly television show where you can be in their face, boom, 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 every week, and kind of really build that. Especially if you have a show, 6 shows a year and you're a small promotion, they're not going to remember the intricate details of the storylines. So it's not really, storylines are almost moot, because it's just not. You need weekly recaps and all this stuff. But we capitalized, and man, we made believers out of everybody.
So Heyman had taken over. That was after Jim Cornette had left. I would be remiss if I didn't ask you. You probably get asked about it a lot. There was this incident that led to Cornette being dismissed, allegedly, involving you and him and the Boogeyman. What was your side of that, and how that kind of happened?
Yeah, no, it was my first day ever coming to TV, and I was there with my daughter in the audience, and I was sitting in the section where the students sit, and I was smiling because the Boogeyman was coming towards my daughter, and I thought he was going to scare the crap out of her. So I'm sitting behind my daughter, I'm crossing my arms going, okay, this is going to be good, man. She's going to shit her pants. And he took that as me, disrespecting the angle, and they took me backstage and berated me in front of people. But I'm like, hey man, I remember saying, I don't even know what you're talking about. It's my first day, my first day in this here, and whatever. He put on his show and took advantage of somebody that couldn't do anything to defend himself, because there's no way I'm gonna do anything back to him. I would be kicked out of the country. I'm charged for assault, kicked out of the school. The list goes on of what could have happened. So I just sucked it up, and that was it. He's Cornette, right? People know what kind of person he is, and he is his own punishment, right? Like his own legacy and his own is just going to be the kind of person he is. So I have no problem with the guy. I have no problem with anybody, man. Carrying around grudge and burden and resentment and all that stuff, it's a heavy thing to carry, man. So I unloaded that a long time ago, and.
But I was curious too, because you had that run-in with him not too long ago. I feel it was at an autograph signing, or maybe at a wrestling event. What led to that? I saw the clip, but you don't really hear or see much. What's
so there was Scott Demore needed a favor to go do this thing, and I went there and I saw him there, and I'm like, you know what? Because we have some mutual friends, right? So and some people that I respect speak highly of him. I'm willing to let it go. So I walked up to him and extended my hand and said, hey, Anthony Carelli, and hopefully we can have a giggle and put it behind us. And he proceeded to, I guess he was infuriated by the fact that I walked up to him with a smile and stuck my hand out like whatever. Then he tried cutting a promo on me again. And I was just like, hey man, I'm not in that position anymore. I'm retired. Like you have no power over me. Now it's just man to man.
Hmm.
And if you're gonna punk me off as a man, well, I'm not gonna let you punk me off as a man. And in fact, if you want to make it, go down that road, let's go down that road. You're not going to walk away taking advantage of me again.
Hmm.
And, there was a podcast where he was saying how next time he sees me, he's going to slap me again. And I was like, okay, we'll see. So then I'm like, here I am, right? Slap me again. And then he's like, yeah, help. And, kind of redemption a little bit. And he showed his true colors. And yeah, if I saw him today, I wave and smile and say hi. I have no problem with him. I'm sure he has a problem with me because it helps keep him alive, but it's all right. I have no problem with him.
No, I mean it's nice to see that you've taken the high road and it doesn't occupy a lot of space in your head. Rather than dwelling on these things, I want to actually just touch on some of the highlights of your career, because I really feel around, and I'll probably get the year wrong, but I'm thinking it was maybe around 2011, maybe a little later than that, when they gave you that shot in the Royal Rumble where you were the runner up.
Yeah.
I think back to watching that Rumble and the reaction from the crowd when they thought that Alberto Del Rio had won, and then here you come loading up the Cobra. I feel like you were selling it so well, like almost like you had tears rolling down your face. Like it was such a great moment. Everyone was on their feet. We can probably splice the clip into this episode, as we like to do once we put it into post-production. But it was just such an epic moment with him celebrating. Everyone's mad, and there you are loading up the Cobra. Tears rolling down. I swear, in my mind, it was tears rolling down your face. It was such a moment, and I'm watching it, and I'm like, they're going to give it to him. This is amazing. And then, unfortunately, you didn't end up getting it. But that reaction, I feel it definitely has to be up there with you winning the Intercontinental title in Italy. Just one of those top moments of your career. What was that like, and when did you find out that was going to be the way the end of the Rumble was going to be?
Yeah, I found out that day. But even my own brother, he thought I was going to win it just because the way I was selling it and, getting choked up, like almost stooging it off, like it's going to, and yeah, it was a pretty fun moment. It's funny because it became so that and the Elimination Chamber was shortly after, and they became, it's crazy. I didn't realize the significance and the impact those two moments had on the professional wrestling business, that they became synonymous with like two of the biggest swerves where you're like, no, for sure he's going to win it. And it didn't happen. And I always liked it because I'm just old school. I'm a worker in the sense that I like to keep people hungry for it, and in a single match, I'll fail at something, and then finally at the end, the big payoff, and that's just storytelling. And then at the macro level, I wanted to do that in my career and like come short, always give people, it's like you're thirsty and you drink water and the water's done. You're like, you didn't quench your thirst fully and you're still thirsty. And you never get that quench. And then I was hoping that one day we were going to finally win the big one. And it was going to be an insane, epic, eruption of whatever jubilation. But then my neck shit the bed and I had to step away from wrestling. So we never got a chance to really finish that off. But there was something romantic about leaving my career and leaving the fans with always wanting just a little bit more. And I loved it. I loved the fact that it ended up like that. It was such a Santino thing to come so close. And when I go to signings or appearances and I talk to guys, and everyone, like, they love to tell me, well, one, what they were doing at that time, who they were with, and like, we thought you were going to win it, man. It was my friends and I were jumping around saying he's going to be the main event of Mania. Everyone seemed to be really cool with it, and there was a lot of good stuff happening at the time, and a lot of people were like, I can see this. This is all right with me, and it never happened, but it was fun, man. It was really fun. The Elimination Chamber. I saw memes, people showing this like perfect utopia world, and it's like what the world would look like if Santino won the Elimination Chamber and stuff. Yeah, so it's and there's even spots. Pete Dunne was telling me that there's a thing called a Santino spot, where like when there's a huge spot in a match that's completely geared towards making people think this is the finish guaranteed. Like this is the Santino spot, and then you take it away from him.
Because I'll tell you one thing, you met a friend of mine, David Simon, at that show that we did here in Montreal, where you became the president of Main Event Wrestling.
Yeah,
where you defeated Mike Patterson in that debate. Who Mike is a stablemate of mine, so I wasn't too happy about that, but you are a favorite of mine, so it was a bittersweet victory, I guess you could say. David Simon, who I used to host a radio wrestling show with back around that time. We actually started it in college and then got it onto TSN radio. He was probably your biggest fan in the city. He would refer to you as the most entertaining man in all of professional wrestling.
Oh, wow.
And that same year, he had said, and I might be getting it wrong, but there was a year WrestleMania, I think, was slated to be in New Jersey. It might have been Mania or SummerSlam. And we were talking about, who could they build as someone who's someone from Jersey? Is there anyone on the roster? And I remember they were billing you from Patterson, New Jersey. Yeah, I remember that. And he had said, they got to do it. They got to build Santino for that one. And then when you qualified for the Elimination Chamber, because I think that there was somebody else that was
Randy.
in. Yeah, and then they replaced him with you. He was like, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. He's going to win the belt. He's going to win the chamber. He has the fans behind him. And we were watching that. And then the match came down to you and Daniel Bryan, which in hindsight, thinking of that, it's like, had you won, there wouldn't have even been that match with Sheamus and Daniel Bryan that led to the Yes Movement being created. Just what a crazy ripple effect that would have been on the history of wrestling. Just absolutely incredible. I think that when I started really getting behind you and seeing that, you were like the most entertaining thing on WWE TV was when you had the run with the Intercontinental title and started the Honkometer. And you were doing these matches, like you did one with Snitsky and then with one of the Deuce and Domino guys, and it was always a different challenger each week. But it would be these matches almost where they would have the over on you for the entire match, and then you would somehow like fluke your way into the win. I think there's one where like you got knocked out and then had hit the guy with something, or you end up falling on him. And I loved how all those matches would play out. And I'm like, here's the guy who's the most entertaining guy, and he doesn't have to do anything in his matches.
Yeah,
I thought it was a great formula.
And it was the irony, because I trained to be a wrestling machine, and when I just at the time when I became this comical character, like I was so good at wrestling, and all of a sudden it's like I didn't have to use anything really, I just kind of had. Yeah, I got I didn't train to be a comedy wrestler, but I definitely got a handle on it when it was presented. It was fun, man. The Elimination Chamber was sometimes you're living in the moment and you're trying to just execute it properly, and then you look back again and you're like, whoa, that was crazy, man. And everywhere I go, people bring it up, both of them, the Elimination Chamber and the Rumble.
Yeah. And one thing I got to witness live, it happened in Toronto, was that match that you did where you and Beth Phoenix took on John Cena and Trish. Where you were gonna reveal the truth about Santa Claus or something like that. I think that was the catch there. That was a lot of fun. I got to see that one live. Had some pretty good seats for that show. Very entertaining. Is that the only time you worked with John Cena?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so. Actually, maybe one other time, but. Yeah, I think so. Maybe.
What are your thoughts on Cena as a?
I love John Cena as a person. He's intelligent. He's hardworking. He's just a super good guy. He does a lot of really good things. Like the Make-A-Wish stuff. That's like the tip of the iceberg. He does a lot of good that goes undocumented, unnoticed, and he's a really interesting person when you get inside his head a little bit. But yeah, man, he's iconic, right? And he was my locker room leader for my generation while I was there on Raw, and we shared a lot of miles together, man. A lot of good times, and he's a great guy, man. I'm a huge fan John Cena, Triple H, like Vince. Like I'm like Vince is like my like I want to be like Vince, man. Remember those I want to be like Bo Jackson shirts?
Yeah.
I want to be like Vince, man. I want to just be jacked and 70 and holding down the fort and running my business like a well-oiled machine. Like he's what you want to be like, man.
Yeah, definitely.
Family man, like everything. Vince is awesome.
Yeah, hardest working man in showbiz.
Yes.
But I also wanted to say, and this is just, in doing my research and everything, but also being a fan of yours, I feel that one of the greatest things about the Santino Marella was that you enhanced everyone you were on screen with. Starting from when you had the pairing with Maria, and then Glamarella, even with your short-lived team with Carlito, with Vladimir Kozlov.
Yeah.
I think you really helped elevate him also in the eyes of the people and in bringing out his entertaining side. Just everything that you were put to do, I think that the people who were involved in it with you also benefited a lot. I definitely think had that injury not occurred, I mean, you could have done this, well into your 60s like Ric Flair.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of happy it did. It was an amazing chapter. Don't get me wrong, but since then I've done so much. And that's the thing with wrestling. You can do so many things in life, or you can be a full-time WWE professional wrestler, which soaks up all your time. And like there's guys when I look back and I'm like, so for example, Kofi Kingston and I were hired on the same day. And he's coming in on 20 years, which is awesome. I mean, he's it's an honor and it's a privilege and stuff. But I'm like, do you know how much stuff I've done the last 7 years? Or when did my contract finish? 5 years actually. My neck surgery was like 7 years ago, but my contract actually expired 5 years ago. And I've done so many incredible things that I can't imagine if I was on the road for that time, not being able to do all that stuff. So it's a trade-off. You trade off like tons of your time, like tons and tons of your time. And one thing that I take pride in is that when people that I worked with or interviewed, they often refer to the time we worked together as some of their favorite times in their career. So like Beth and Kozlov and specifically those two, we had some of the best times,
Yeah. No, that's great. And it's great when your coworkers and your peers can speak so highly of you. So many years removed from, doing this day in, day out. One of the things I had heard, kind of a rumor about you, wanted to throw it out there. Nothing bad. Just that, and I'm trying to remember who told me. Usually I'm pretty good. I have a great memory, but I want to always be specific with my sources because I don't want it to just be out there. But I had heard that when it comes to promos, that they could give you a script of many, many, many pages, and you'd be able to hit absolutely every note perfectly on there. Is there truth to that rumor?
In the beginning, they would give me, it was so weird because I'd be like in Gorilla, not remembering it and being like, oh my God, I'm panicking. I always had this little superstition where I'd have the promo in my back pocket. And if I was wearing jeans or dress pants and out there, the promo was folded in my back pocket at all times. And I felt like it was like osmosis or something. But once I went out there and the camera was on, I was able to remember everything all the time. It was crazy. But as my career went on, the pages became points, then eventually they just became little like a little notes. What do you call them? Like little
like footnotes.
Footnotes, just like say, and then sometimes they would just say, okay, say this, this, and this, but say it in your way. Bullets, right? Bullets is what I meant. And but in the beginning it was pages and pages. And then gradually you have a little more input, a little more say as they have more trust in you. And then eventually it's a few bullets and you got to bring it to life yourself. So, but yeah, in the beginning I was pretty good. I forgot one promo. And it was the day after I debuted. I did like who is this Santino guy? It was on ECW, and I was just so hungover from the night before, my little initiation night. But Dusty Rhodes taught me a trick, like months earlier. If you ever get lost in your promo, just get choked up, right? Just kind of take a break, and which it actually even adds to the promo. Like, oh my God, this guy's getting choked up. This is and this promo was supposed to be in Italian, and my Italian at the time was not very good. And So I blanked for a second, got choked up, and gathered my thoughts and finished it off. And Dusty, man, he's always giving you little gems that you can use, like real gems you can use in real life. So, but that was the only time I ever forgot a promo and blanked was that the day after I debuted.
So do you feel that having the script is beneficial, or do you think that, you know, bullet points are more the way to go and allow the wrestler
Oh, it depends. It depends on your strengths, you know. If you're able to bring it to life, and you know, some people suck at promos, like in terms of being creative. So write everything for them, you know. Some people don't even need a promo, you know. They go completely off the cuff, and you just got to keep up because they know where they're going, right? They know how much time they have, and this guy's like Stone Cold, man. He when we had that one segment, I don't think he was even given a piece of paper. You know, he knows what he's doing, and I knew when he went off the kind of script. I go, I'm obviously in pretty good hands, so I'm not going to worry about it. And it was you know, an excellent segment.
Yeah, that was the one where he brought out the beer truck.
Yeah, hose me down.
Yeah, I feel there was a part in that too where like a good chunk of the audience got sprayed too. I don't know if it was.
I think every time they get, it's funny. There's a couple of cards, like WWE cards, and one of them is me like doing the backflip with the beer and stuff.
Wow.
And my 3-year-old's asking me like, "What's going on in this picture? How do you explain that?"
Oh, that's amazing. So now you're very involved in battle arts.
Yes.
You maybe want to tell people a bit about the concept of battle arts and what you provide there for those who are unfamiliar with it.
Yeah, in 2004, when I was in Japan, the original battle arts, you know, the MMA fighters and the pro wrestlers, they all trained together and equally hard, and they often, you know, switched, right? The pro wrestlers would do an MMA fight, the MMA wrestlers would do a pro wrestling show, and I just loved it. I loved being viewed as a real athlete and bringing that legitimacy to pro wrestling. And I knew my neck was getting bad, so I wanted to open and establish a business before it actually was, you know, time to call it quits. Mm-hmm. So I was over in Japan with WWE, and I met Mr. Ishikawa, the owner and founder of the original Battle Arts, who's like an incredible walking encyclopedia of submissions. And I said, "Would you come? Would you, if I opened a place, would you come?" He said, "Absolutely, I'm there." So we started getting the ball rolling and work visas and engineers, architects, and found the place. And it was a huge, God, man, it was a huge project. But we did it, man. We built a 13,000 square foot gym. I had it laid out inch for inch, designed in my mind, and became a reality. And we've been going now 8 years strong. And all our programs, like, we survived COVID. So like our jiu-jitsu program is stacked right now. Our Muay Thai program, boxing program, amateur wrestling program. We're like the regional training center, like unofficially, but with like 80 kids there. And it's incredible. Wow. And then we have pro wrestling at night. And the gym transforms and it turns into an arena, the Don Koloff Arena, where we're able to host our events, host events for other promotions. And it's really just like the Toronto Mecca for you know, combat sports and pro wrestling. So I was there last night. I was there this morning, actually. I had a morning class, and it's just awesome walking around in there. And people that are there, you know, Mike from Montreal just came down, Isaiah's buddy.
Mike Shasha?
He's a Filipino, Italian.
Oh, Mike Moratis.
Yes.
Yes.
And he was there. We trained this morning, and he was just blown away. And he was just like, you know, it's like you're walking into the PC. And the guys in the PC that came up, because the NXT, all the coaches that came and have a look, and they're like, "What? This is like, you built a PC in Canada?" Like, you know, it's an incredible facility, man. And yeah, now Stone Rockwell's helping me coach right now, and I think there's some synergy taking place. We coach differently, and but when you put it all together, I think they're really getting a well-rounded education.
Yeah, no, I've had the privilege of being there only once. I got to wrestle in the Don Koloff Arena only once. Would love to be there more. You know, maybe if you could help a brother out, maybe put in a word with old George Iceman for Destiny, because I know they run there, and I've been hitting him up, but he's got a lot on his plate.
Well, there's Battle Arts Pro too, so maybe in the new year I'll book you myself.
Hey, I'll be happy to come down. Anything that can help expand my experience and get to pick your brain even more, I'm up for that. But I do have to say, objectively, look, I've never been to WWE's Performance Center. When I did my tryouts, it was at the old FCW,
Yeah,
that kind of thing
Tampa.
that like, I don't know if it was in a strip mall or it's in just an old warehouse.
Yeah.
But yeah, Battle Arts blows that away with everything that you have there, with the nice AstroTurf, with the punching bags, with the wrestling setup too. It's tremendous.
Yeah, there was a time in the 2015 Pan Am Games, the Venezuelan Olympic team was training at Battle Arts. They kind of rented it out for like a couple weeks during the day, and their Olympic team was walking around taking pictures like
Yeah.
it was better than their Olympic training center. So I'm really proud of it, man. And I look, and especially last night, and I'm looking at it, I built this whole goddamn place myself, man. Like I literally, I used to have an expression in there saying, I tighten the bolts in here. Like this is my place. I tighten the bolts. I make sure everything's safe and put together. And yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, no, and you've produced a lot of quality students, a lot of great talent. I had the privilege of working with Ad Hutchison, who had a lot of fun working with him on one of Rene Dupree's tours.
Yes.
So I mean, if he's any kind of a reflection of the type of wrestler that you're putting out, you're definitely putting out quality. And
yeah, no, I have guys that and they're so good. I'm like, God, and I'm talking to guys in the talent relations. I'm like, I'm not being biased. I know I'm being objective. These guys are better than some of the guys you got here. Like it's just we have to cross that hurdle, right? That getting more Canadians down there. But yeah, there's some really good talent.
And another great talent that you've put out is your own daughter, Bianca.
Yes.
For those unfamiliar, she recently wrestled for the NWA, got fantastic reviews. Nice to see her doing extremely well. Maybe tell us a bit about your daughter and how she decided to follow in your footsteps.
Well, she was one of those kids, that was identified from young, 8 years old. She was a superstar. I identified her. I go, this kid's phenomenal. She was a provincial judo champion at 6 years old, and she won the school speeches, and she won Miss Teen Ontario, and she's just she has the it factor. And I had to sit her down when I was 8 years old and said, listen, I need to get you somewhere. I need to bring you to some platform so the world can see you, because you're a superstar. And I go, I don't know anybody in Hollywood, but I'm pretty good at this wrestling thing, and let me go there and get there, and then by the time you're ready, we'll bring you there. You're a superstar. I didn't know if it was going to be acting for her or WWE, but she graduated. She got a biology degree from Western, and she is now really working really hard. And that's all I ever wanted from her, was just to be the hardest working person in the room. And she's working super hard. And if she keeps up this work ethic, absolute sky's the limit. I mean, like main event WrestleMania material in the next 4 or 5 years. Like, it's going to be fun watching her. And my 3-year-old is going to be watching his sister, this superstar sister, doing her thing. So maybe she'll inspire and motivate him too.
Yep. Well, it's great to see that the family lineage is going to continue on in professional wrestling. I think she's got a hell of a bright future in front of her, and she's definitely got a great coach in her corner. I could go on talking with you for hours and hours. You have such a great wealth of knowledge, and you're such a fun human being to converse with. But we do have to wrap things up here. But
yeah, good. My wife's waiting for me.
but before going, let the people know where they can find you, social medias, anything you want to plug. The floor is yours, my friend.
Yeah, I know. I mean, if you're interested, you want to come down to Battle Arts Academy. We're in Mississauga, 4880 Tomken Road. But you can find us online. God, I don't know exactly even what it is. Battle Arts Academy MMA or Battle Arts Academy BAA.
We'll put a graphic up on the screen.
So Instagram and all that stuff. And yeah, that's it. Don't come looking for me personally. You can go to Battle Arts. I'll meet you there.
That sounds good. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Well, thank you for joining us for another awesome edition of Jofo in the Ring. Thank you ever so much to Anthony Carelli, aka Santino Marella, for being our guest today. So tune into our many episodes. You can find them all on YouTube. Leave a comment, like, subscribe. You can also follow me on my social media platforms at Jeremy Prophet on Twitter. That's Prophet. You can follow me on Instagram at The Real Jeremy Prophet. And you can follow me on Facebook on my Jeremy Prophet fan page. Let us know if you like this episode. I can't see why you wouldn't, because two awesome guys giving you the business, talking about the business. Hey, don't get much better than that.
Guys with big muscles, you know?
Yeah, and natural. So when it comes down to it, you know that Jofo is always going to give you the best and is always going to remind you that wrestling is life.
So, Jofo, I'm going to gargle a shot for Kurt Hennig and everybody before we go.
Oh, no.
Jofo, thank you guys.